What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at advanced micro devices, AMD stock, ticker symbol AMD, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Thursday, March 7th. All right, guys, AMD stock here today up 2.68%. That's $5.50 a share in regular trading hours. It is down about 20 cents or so in the after hours. Listen, as always, take after hours with a grain of salt. Why? Well, if we take a look at the volume after hours, it is incredibly low. Okay, so like 99% of the time, the only exception would be if there is a major, usually business-specific catalyst in the after hours. Earnings are a great example. That contributes to volume that matches intraday volume. To me, that's kind of the only exception. Aside from that, we have to take it with a grain of salt, whether it's in our favor or going against our current sentiment. Let's take a look here at AMD, starting with, this is of course the 1 minute chart. Let's start with our volume profile analysis. This is kind of our daily ritual here on the 5 minute chart. Listen, if you are new here, please subscribe to the channel. I will do my best to provide you free value every single day. So looking here at the 5 minute chart, you guys know what I'm looking for at this point, right? Assuming you're not new here. I'm always looking for big pumps in volume, okay, that correlate with an obvious move in stock price. But I think where most people go wrong when they're doing a volume profile analysis is they don't take things contextually, meaning they're not looking through a lens of, okay, what is contextual for that particular time of day? For example, you'll get a lot of bulls looking at this off the open and saying, wow, what an open, a huge move on huge volume. Well, it wasn't really that huge of a move, but the volume is also contextual, right? What I think is more interesting is to look at things that are outside of the scope of what is expected at that time of day. So had we seen 7 million shares of volume off the open, that would be very interesting. But what we typically will see in terms of volume is kind of a U shape throughout the day, right? And typically the right-hand side of the U is going to be shorter to close, right, than the open. And that's kind of what we got today. But if we look at a few of the obvious moves here, what I'm kind of looking at is this up-down move off the open, this move here intraday, and then that recovery intraday that had the majority of green candles. And I want to look at the volume of those kind of 3 to 4 moves. Okay, so off the open, we did see, the volume was holding strong for a little while, but to me, it's not out of the ordinary enough to get any definitive data out of that move, or 2 moves, I suppose. So let's take that away. This downside move here, it was really only 2 or 3 candles, and there's essentially nothing there. I'm typically looking for at least 3 or 4 consecutive volume candles that are elevated outside of the context of that time of day. We don't really have that there, sorry, bears. Now, bulls, this move was an incredibly consistent move. There was only 1 red candle, and it was essentially a spinning top for over 30 minutes, okay? But the volume was pretty contextual for that time of day. All right, so as far as the volume profile is concerned, not extraordinarily out of the ordinary, but a very interesting upside move nonetheless out of the bulls, considering the green to red ratio on that move. So let's move on here to the 30-minute chart and take a look at levels that I'm going to be paying extremely close attention to come tomorrow, Thursday. Now you can see here on the 30-minute chart, of course, I have the 50 period, that white line, and the 200 period, that gray line. These are the most self-fulfilling prophecy indicators that we could possibly utilize, and that's why I'm utilizing them, right? They are the most psychologically relevant because they're the most heavily used. And you can see here that over the last 3 trading days, AMD has been in a battle with this 50 period moving average on the 30-minute chart. So come tomorrow, Thursday, okay, bulls, from a bullish perspective, what I would want to see here is that if we end up seeing a test of that 50 period, as you can see, by the way, it's starting to curl upside, which is a good sign if you are a bull. You always want that thing as close as possible to the stock on an upside move. But any test at all, I'm going to want to see a clean bounce on any volume that is average or preferably above average volume. As long as it's not below average volume, I'm thrilled. Okay? If I'm a bear, again, I'm going to want to see a higher than average volume because we're trying to get down below, break to the downside, and then if not, a retest, because I always like to get that confirmation, right? A retest and a hard fade on above average volume back down toward, 205, $200 a share. Now let's take a look at the 4-hour chart and see here. AMD has been on quite the move. I mean, of course, we hit an all-time high here today, which we'll get to on the daily chart. But when you make a move like this, and then you start going to the 4-hour and the daily, these moving averages, they're going to take their time. It's a longer-term time frame. So that being the case, we're looking at this and we're like, well, it's 20 points away, that 50 period, right? So we don't have to pay attention to it. But I'm actually still watching the 4-hour just with a different eye. What I'm really looking for here, if I'm a bull, is kind of what we're getting. We're getting this 50 period accelerating upside because what do I want, right? I want as many psychological barriers getting up underneath the move as quickly as possible. The more this accelerates upside, the quicker it can get up to 195, 200, 205. And if I'm a bear looking at the 4-hour chart right now on AMD, I want this thing to slow down. I would ideally like this to flatten out especially before $200 a share, but ideally even below, 195. It might be a little late here for 190. Now let's move on to the most important chart of all. That's going to be the daily. Okay, the daily always paints the most clear picture, most obvious picture, and we want the most obvious picture, right? The more you start to overcomplicate the daily chart, I really think the less relevant it becomes, because this is all the TA, a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we need the story that has the most eyeballs and has the most decision-making happening around that story. So what's the clear story on AMD right now? Well, to me, it's obvious. It's 3 psychological levels because those moving averages are essentially irrelevant right now on the daily. They're both below 170. The story here, if I'm a bull, I want to see 210 hold hard as a new support level, because this is uncharted territory up here. 210 hold on high volume. Any retest of it, have a high volume bounce occur, even if we bounce along that area for unlimited times, 3-4 times, just high volume bounces, okay, and then pull away up through not only 215 but heading up toward 220. Okay, now bears, what's your ultimate goal here? To crack downside below 200, right? So that's going to require to reclaim 210 as a resistance, which we did see happen 3 trading days ago now. And you'd want to see a hard break, retest of 210, and fade back downside toward that $200 a share near-term goal. Now let's finish out here by taking a look at what was the bias out of the options traders here today, Wednesday. This is all volume just from today as we head into tomorrow, okay? So we had just under 1 million total contracts traded. 565,000 of those were calls and 392,000 of those were puts. So we are seeing a call side bias here today in AMD's chain. But if we break it down by time frame, you can see here that every single delta range is leaning call heavy except for the short-term 0 to 20 delta range. That range has 93,000 calls, 174,000 puts. Those are going to be those short-term speculators, okay? So they seem to be leaning a bit to the bearish side, a bit to the put side, whereas every other time frame on average, including the overall, is leaning call heavy. Hey, listen, appreciate you watching the video. If you got value, please subscribe on your way out, and I'll see you in the next one.